In the world.
Kenley, Kenly, Dillard, and he's gonna be speaking to you about what he does as a sketch artist and what we do as photographers. Are there any similarities in that?
Yes.
Because the eye is the shutter when you're drawing.
He's the fastest sketch artist in the world.
Yeah, the second fastest. All right, so let's take it to Mr. Kenley, please.
All right, thank you. I'm good enough, but let's talk about the camera and the mind. That's something that I really want to talk about. Now, you see, as a sketch artist, I specialize in a certain type of sketch. I draw cartoons. That's always been my focal point. That's always been something that always held my interest. Now, the thing is that when I'm drawing, I usually draw from my imagination. I also draw a lot from memory. Now, I want to hit upon memory. Perfect example. Let's say if I drew something like this.
Okay.
Now, something like this. Now, raise your hands. How many of you seen a truck like this on the street? Anybody?
Well, I mean, a moving truck, but like
What type of a truck?
a moving truck.
A moving truck. Right. Now, I saw this truck on the way over here. Now, it's very impressionistic, you know. It doesn't have every single detail. Now, if I had more time, I would be really into the details, trying to recall everything that I saw. But the thing is, though, when I'm walking down the streets, when I'm, just sitting down using my imagination, I'm always recalling things because my mind, my brain, is my camera. How many of you have seen that movie Click with Adam Sandler?
Yeah.
You ever seen, you know how he has that remote control and he can stop time? All right. Now, the thing is, though, we all have that ability. We all have that ability to remember things, which is why, you go through your scrapbooks and everything. It can bring you back to the time that you were there, and that's why photographs are so important. Now, there are a lot of similarities between the mind and the camera, and being an artist and being a photographer. You see, a photographer, you take pictures. When you're taking pictures, what usually comes out of the camera when you're taking a picture? Anybody? Does water come out? What comes out?
Image.
No, not the image. Not just the image.
Lighting.
The lighting. Okay. The flash. Illumination. Now, if a light could pick up an image, all right, imagine the light that goes through your eyes and into your mind, and the fact that you're able to capture moving images. Like, how many of you ever have like crazy dreams that seem so real and everything? Now, when you're sleeping, your eyes may be closed. You may be on the, in your bed unconscious, but your mind is still going. It's the camera that never shuts off. Okay? So when I'm drawing, especially a cartoon, like let's say if I thought about duck, my mind's gonna go back to a time I did see a duck. Let's say in Central Park, I saw a duck one time, hunched over like this. And he was nibbling on a newspaper. Now, there is a technique that I am using to break this down. And it also is a term that's also used with photography. How many of you ever heard of negatives? Okay. Now, when you're drawing with line, believe it or not, what a lot of people won't tell you is that you're drawing negative space. Do you see lines around you everywhere you go? Like, do you see the outlines? You see what they call light and shadow. okay? Which is why when you take a photograph, it's very important that you get the proper lighting, because if you don't, this could happen. Depending on what you're looking for, the type of lighting you're looking for, it can cover up the details, or here's what happens. But if you have too much light, it'll lack contrast. But both are prone to each other. Too much light can take away contrast, too much dark can take away contrast. So it's very important, like in drawing, to have balance. Let's say if I had a tree back here. Now this time I'm just making it up. If I had it like really dark back here, and really light in the front with maybe some tone, I would use my negative space to be able to break down the two, okay? Very similar to photographs. Now, I'm gonna draw a photograph right now. Well, it's not gonna look exactly like a photograph, but it's the idea of one. This is enforced in what they call in fine arts, the rule of thirds, okay? It's used in photography. Every time I pick up my digital camera and I look at it, click, 1, 2, 3, right across. This is so that you're able to create a composition that, is either pleasing and also doesn't hit this middle area. Because one of the main rules in illustration or any type of picture making, if it's right in the center like this, is a boring composition. So it always has to be off center at all times. Otherwise it's gonna look really static.
What?
Yeah, go ahead.
When it in depth of field, right? And let's just say you're taking a shot, like in understanding depth of field. When you draw, do you draw with the mindset of depth of field? Like are you looking at everything as far back behind the subject, the things that are around the subject, and their size?
Oh, you talking?
Okay,
I know what you're talking about. You're talking about scale. That's
Scale.
what scale.
I'm sorry.
When I'm looking at a picture, or I'm looking at the world.
Right.
You know what? I'm gonna create an example right now. Can I have 2 volunteers to come up here? All right, you 2 can come up here.
Did you finish that?
Which one?
The conversation about that?
What, the multiplane? Yeah, it's just basically a camera
No,
that
the
creates
rules
a
of thirds. Did you finish?
Which one? This one?
Yeah. The rule of thirds in the middle.
The rule of thirds.
The matrix. Did you finish that?
Yeah, I did.
Okay, good.
All right. Okay. Prepare to do a little bit of acting. All right. Let's say we have 2 people, and don't scream. Just what's the word? Pantomime. You know what pantomime is? You know what pantomime is?
Yeah.
Okay. You're gonna act it out, and what's gonna happen is when I'm gonna have you pantomime it first, and then I'm gonna show you what you're gonna do next. Pretend that you're arguing with her. 2 people arguing. You ready? All right. With your body though. All right. Now with the camera, you can capture that in one shot. Okay. But the thing is, slow it down now. Argue again, but in slow motion. Now freeze. Stay just like that.
Stop, don't move.
Now, if I would have here's the thing. If I would have just gave you this image, would you know the movements that came before it?
No.
Raise a hand.
No.
All right. Reverse that.
Oh, sorry.
All right. Now do it again in fast motion. Freeze. Now, in between that, have you gotten any of the other movements?
No, not with a camera.
Not with the camera.
Right.
Now, when I'm drawing, I always select the scene. Like 2 people walking. Can you 2 just walk across each other? All right. Now let's do that in reverse. Do it again. Freeze. Now, before that, you saw them separated, right? But if I was to just get this image, would I know which direction the characters came?
Yeah.
No.
All right. Now, when I'm illustrating, especially when I'm using my imagination, when I'm using my imagination, there's a point to this. When I'm using my imagination, I'm drawing events that are not happening in front of you, but I'm using my mental camera to capture that motion. Now, when I show my picture to somebody, somebody's gonna be like, oh wow, what could they be doing? Perfect example, you remember early on when I drew that cartoon of you doing the push-ups, the drill sergeant and whatnot. Now, you don't know why, what the story is behind that, even though you said, hey, draw me doing the push-ups. You don't know the backstory to that. It could have been that, oh, you came in there and you didn't come dressed up for the military, so you're being punished. You know what I mean? But a picture, they say, is worth 1,000 words.
Right.
But the thing is, the words that are being used, the thousands of words being used, are never usually in question. A lot of people have backstories in their mind. So as photographers and as an artist, the thing is that with the rule of thirds, with your memory, also with your observation of the subject matter, believe it or not, you're creating a story for people that they're going to have to draw a conclusion to on their own. Any questions? Yes?
Just like the clown there.
Exactly. Now that clown could be doing anything.
Right.
All right?
Like the assumption was he was standing, now he's bending over, talk, you know,
Right.
looking at the baby.
He could be. It could be something positive too.
Right.
And speaking of positive, I'm gonna go back to negative space real quick, because you have the negatives within the negatives. But if I was to render this up, if I was to finish shading it up, this right here, you got your positive space, which is why if I added a certain lighting, like let's say if I didn't want the clown and the kid and let's say the baby carriage to be so distinct. Let's say if I wanted the building where the photograph or the image is taking place. I did say South Street Seaport. Let's say if I wanted the boat that's usually by there.
That's a cutter. Sailboat?
Yeah. Now let's go back to mental photography, because if I did not see this, I wouldn't be able to come up with some idea of what it looks like. You get what I'm saying?
Okay.
There's a lot of people who have actually full-blown photographic memories. You ever heard of Stephen Wiltshire? Anybody?
Yeah, I know, well, yeah.
Okay.
He can look at something for 5 seconds and memorize it.
Not true. 15 minutes.
15 minutes?
Okay.
When they flew him over the
Japan, and New York and London.
London.
And all types of stuff. His backstory, real quickly, and it does pour into this message because he is known as the human camera. I learned a lot from reading about him and other savants. His thing was that nothing changes. He always focuses on objects and he always focuses on things that don't change. That's why even though Stephen Wiltshire is a super genius, you would never see him draw people because people change all the time. They never stay in one place.
Right.
Okay, but with him, he was obsessed with objects. So your mind is like that camera. Whatever you're into, like really into, if you're really into hip hop, you're gonna remember everything about hip hop visually. If you're into mechanics, you're gonna be really into whatever. If you're really into photography, if you're really into this class, you will really remember everything from a photographic standpoint. You get what I'm saying? So you gotta be really into it. But going back to this,
But
and how
objects, so I just real
Yeah.
quick question. But you know, the fact that objects never change, but angles do. So when he was flying over these different cities,
Mhm.
right? He drew the shots from one perspective. They weren't multi-dimensional.
That's what I mean. Like his panoramics. Like if you ever see Stephen Wiltshire and look at all his drawings, his drawings, they usually have it on a curve like this, and he sits in a seat like this, and the buildings are all
He sees from one end.
because that's the direction that the plane is going.
Oh, okay.
Okay.
All right.
Now, going back to this over here and how it relates to negative space and being able to recall things, my whole thing is that objects don't change. People do, but the thing is, your mind will pick up on whatever it is you really focus on.